You're in an unhealthy or toxic relationship and you need to leave, but you just can't. There is one part of you that is so torn. You love him so deeply. You want it to work and you'd stay to the bitter end, but there's this other part of you that knows how unbelievably toxic it is, and you're deeply angry. You could literally kill him for what's been going on. Or you're shut down about it because you've stuffed your anger down for so long and you just feel lifeless and cut off from who you are. There's a big question, well, why don't you just leave? You and I know it is not that simple. Today, I'm going to unpack why you can't leave and where this part of you that keeps convincing you to stay actually comes from, that wants you to make it work, that doesn't think it's that bad. There is actually an attachment origin to this. And stick around to the end because I'm going to show you how to rewire that part so you can prepare yourself emotionally to be ready to leave. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Amy Kerr and I work with women who are sick of being stuck in the cycle of attracting toxic relationships, and I help them to heal their relationship to themselves through work in the body where the energy of their core wound lies, so they can be happy on their own and confident and their true authentic self in love. And if this sounds like you, please click subscribe to my channel, hit the bell so you get notified when I post new lessons, which is every week. Before I get started on our lesson today, I want to let you know Heal Your Heart School is open for enrollments. So if you'd like to know how to work one-on-one with me, make sure you stick around till the end of this video. In a nutshell, the core reason of why you can't leave is because the pain of leaving is greater than the pain of staying. And the pain of staying at the moment is huge, right? They've probably been unfaithful, lying, gaslighting, abusive, hugely painful to stay. So that speaks to the level of pain you perceive at actually leaving and being on your own. So why do you perceive being on your own to be so painful? Where does this come from? Where does this fear of being alone come from? Because other people seem to be able to do it easily, right? They're happy to be single on their own till the right person comes along and they're able to be in discernment. They're able to say no to someone if they're not right for you. But you probably fell into this relationship really quickly. You've probably never spent much time on your own, or you don't know who you are because you've just always been in a relationship, or perhaps you're in a state of learned helplessness where you're just so used to having a partner, you just don't know what it would be like. They're superficial symptoms of a much deeper wound that I call an abandonment wound. Let's unpack a list of symptoms that you have an abandonment wound. You feel empty and incomplete on your own, and that's ironically exacerbated by the fact that you're staying in an unhealthy relationship where there is actually no healthy intimacy and commitment. You avoid responsibility for yourself by justifying your attachment to your unhealthy partner. You might be saying, we've been together for so long, or we've got to stay together for the children, but that's just you avoiding taking responsibility for doing the right thing for yourself and for your kids. And you might compulsively disassociate, so you check out of reality. That might look like soothing by binge watching television, or being hyper fixated on your children, or overeating, or smoking, or drinking. And you're doing this in order to cope with the compromised situation that you forced yourself to be in. You might have a very strong inner critic that keeps telling you that you're not worthy enough, and it might be actually like convincing you that this is all you're worthy of because you're such a terrible or a bad person. You won't find anything better anywhere else. And you might be just so fixated on caretaking of this toxic partner and of the children, and that's how you feel kind of justified to be in the relationship and feel a sense of purpose and a sense of like, I should be here because I need to look after him. And you're probably hyper independent, hyper self-reliant because you just are so used to being on your own all the time, but you actually struggle to ask for help. You're used to not asking for help or being vulnerable with others. And you're likely a perfectionist, so you deeply believe if life and this relationship is perfect, you won't be abandoned, which is really ironic. You're actually just trying to put lipstick on a pig because the relationship itself is inherently extremely flawed. You can never actually have the perfect relationship if you stay in this one. And you probably have trust issues, so you mistrust everyone and believe that no one is actually there for you. And this is historical, right? Like you probably grew up with relationships where you couldn't trust people. And that's why the lack of trust in your current relationship doesn't actually seem so bad. You've just never actually known what healthy trust feels like between two people, so you kind of just don't notice it missing. You probably have difficulty regulating your emotions and sensations. So it feels like when you're triggered, you go from 0 to 100 in an instant and you just don't have any control over it, right? You're pushing everything down and not dealing with things. So when you do eventually get overwhelmed, all of a sudden the dial gets turned up to 100. And you're probably compulsively hyper vigilant as well. You're doing a lot of phone checking, you're doing a lot of scanning for changes in his behavior, checking his things and his stuff, his pockets, tone of voice, anything that could be perceived as a potential threat. And this is partly like understandable, because if he's been cheating on you, it's happened in the past, it's probably going to happen in the future. But the hypervigilance also comes from a trait of having an abandonment wound. Now, when you have an abandonment wound, your fear of being abandoned is so deep that you will do anything to stay connected to your romantic partner. Any signs of potential abandonment or rejection are going to cut you so deeply. Yet you actually only go into a relationship with partners who do exactly that. You tend to attract partners who always reject you in some way, because healthy potential partners just seem completely boring, or they just don't kind of register on your radar. And this is because the abandonment wound was created from your earliest relationships, right? The relationships you had with your caregivers. And if they were always rejecting you, you kind of got used to this inconsistent love as love, and you think that's what it is. So you are wired to actually be turned on and interested by people that can only give you inconsistent love. And the reason why you stay in the relationship and ignore the red flags, ignore their toxic behaviors, is because you literally had to do this as a child in order to stay connected with your parent if your parent was in any way toxic, unhealthy, or emotionally unavailable. It's just a skill you learned as a child in order to, stay connected and feel safe, because it was really dangerous for you as a child to see your caregiver as someone who couldn't give you your connection needs. But you've carried that mechanism into your adulthood, and you're now doing it in this toxic relationship in order to stay. So the abandonment wound can be extremely debilitating in your relationships, and it is really the core of what causes this unhealthy pattern. And if you want to watch a video that goes into the wound more deeply, I have one right here. Now, as I've alluded to, the abandonment wound comes from the blueprint that you learned with your earliest relationships in childhood. So when you're in childhood, if you have an abandonment wound, you were abandoned on some level. It could have been capital T trauma, parent left the home, divorce, death of a parent, something really significant, or abuse or something awful, or it was complex trauma, really subtle trauma, which is where your parents just weren't emotionally available to you enough at the time. If you were sensitive, if you were an empath, your needs were greater and they just weren't able to meet those needs. And there was no actual physical abandonment, but there was a sense and a feeling of abandonment by you. Now, this was an extremely painful state for you as a child that you did everything you possibly could to move away from in order to still feel connected to them. So you did just that, right? You tolerated any kind of toxic behavior or ignored any parts of them that would have shattered your view of them as being amazing, because we all put our parents on a pedestal earlier on, and you love them despite all of it. So you've got those kind of really innate skills from childhood that you've then brought into your present relationship with your current partner. If you're staying in a toxic relationship, you should be leaving. They energetically represent your parent to you, even though you're an adult. You are regressing to a younger version of yourself to stay in this relationship. It's a part of you that craves love and attention and connection in spite of the toxic dynamic. And that's the part that's strongest right now. That's the part that's convincing you to stay, a younger version of yourself. And effectively, your mature adult self is not at the wheel, right? That person is just in the backseat saying, hey, this is really toxic. You shouldn't be in this. You should be leaving. And the other part of you that's like, no, I really need him. We need to make this work. It's for the children. It's for whatever, is in control. But it's a very wounded, very young, naive part of you that should not be making relationship decisions. So anytime your conscious, mature adult self pops up to scream, this is not okay, your inner child, who is desperately afraid of being alone or being abandoned, speaks up and talks you out of leaving. Now, if you're on board and understand this, I want you to know that you probably understand this in your mind, but hang on, there's actually a bigger response to it, because a lot of my clients that come into Heal Your Heart School say, I get all this, I get it in my mind, but I still do it. What's going on? And that's because we also have this somatic childhood abandonment response, right? We actually have The abandonment wound lives in the body, right? It comes out as thoughts, stories, memories, all these things, but the energy lives in the body, and that's where the response comes from. That's where that kind of pull and that tug is, right? You can't put words to it. You might say something like, oh, he just feels like home while he's cheating on you with someone else, right? Like it's this kind of really weird juxtaposed feeling. It's because we've got this somatic abandonment kind of wound in our body. So when you feel it in your body, you might notice that any thought of leaving him produces a strong bodily response like nausea, headaches, intense dizziness, or discomfort. And this is the physical accrual of all the times that you've felt and sensed abandonment in your life. They're still in your body and can come up. And your solution all of those times was to force yourself to stay, to force connection, to talk yourself into making it okay. And you're effectively pushing down emotions and physical feelings into this little angry ball called the abandonment wound, so that you can kind of justify this feeling of, oh, I've just got to make it work because he's the one. Now, I see women justify the most extraordinarily toxic things in this way, right? Being okay with a cheating partner, justifying their behavior by infantilizing them. You know, their little boy is just hurting and is in so much pain, and accepting abusive and absolutely intolerable behavior because, oh, they didn't mean it, right? That's their younger version of themselves that is naive, scared, that shouldn't be making decisions, but is at the moment. So they're actually projecting their need for a relationship to stay in place over the reality of the situation because they themselves are in this regressed state, this younger childlike version of themselves. And, you know, they sometimes even sound and speak like a child as well. So how do we rewire this young part of us so that we can prepare ourselves emotionally to leave a situation? Because I don't expect you to get up and leave. It can be very difficult too. It's more like you've got to prepare runway for yourself, particularly if you've been in a long-term relationship, particularly if there are kids involved. You've got to just start planting the seeds for it. So preparing yourself emotionally is going to make a big difference. So we need to focus on rewiring this younger part because it's this younger part that is absolutely stuck on your toxic partner being their primary attachment figure. This young part of you thinks your toxic partner is going to keep them safe, is daddy, he's the one that needs to look after me, right? This might sound insane as I say it to you, and you might be thinking this is insane. I'm speaking subconsciously and energetically, okay? You've got this regressed young part of you that actually believes this. So what this inner child actually needs is not for your partner to realize the error of his ways and to turn around and never say he'll never do it again and, you know, finally find commitment to you and show you all the love and attention you deserve, because big hint, it's never going to happen. What your inner child actually needs is you. It needs you to stop letting her be in control, letting her run the show, to recognize her need for connection and actually learn how to give her connection and nourishment from within, rather than trying to get it from this toxic, unhealthy container that hardly contains any connection and nourishment at all. Am I right? We actually can give that to her, and we don't need to have that external source anymore. When she's trying to get love and connection from a toxic relationship, she's like a scavenger in the wastelands, right? She's walking through the wastelands and she finds this one scrap, this one breadcrumb from her toxic partner, and she's trying to feed on that. But you, my dear, you, your adult self, your mature self, can give her so much nourishment and so much love if you learn the internal skills to do that, that she feels in abundance with love. She feels love, seen, understood. She feels safe in her body. And there's nothing inherently wrong or broken with you at all. You have just learnt this previous pattern, and now all you need to do is learn the internal skills to reparent and give this inner part love and nourishment. You're very good at learning things, and you can unlearn those old behaviors and learn these new behaviors. And once you rewire where she seeks love from and she starts to trust you, your inner child starts to trust that you can give that to her rather than force her to be in this other situation, she will seek external sources of love a lot less, because she will feel safe and nurtured by you, and your self-trust and your self-esteem will develop. And this is the process of self-love. I've obviously only gone through it briefly here, but I want you to just jump into my webinar now It's the 3 steps to self-love after a toxic relationship ends, and it gives you a much more complete methodology. We even do one of the exercises together in there. It's going to help you out a huge amount. Also, come meet me in my Facebook group. Just click the link to join. We do lives almost every week. And if you would actually like to work with me on this in Heal Your Heart School, I have a link to my calendar below. You can click there and book a discovery call with me and my team. We'll jump on a call and see if we're a fit to work together. And please let me know in the comments below if you found this video helpful, if there was something interesting about it or helpful. Let me know what your circumstance is. I would love to see and hear and comment with you down there. And click the like button on this video because you will always help me out so much in the algorithm when you do that. And for now, here are some next step videos for you to watch to move one step closer to having an incredible relationship with yourself so you can be happy on your own and just show up as your true authentic self in love. And for now, I'll see you in the next video.